Well, my friends, it's good to be home. It really was a wonderful blessing to walk. They kept on saying that phrase, we're walking where Jesus walked, and getting to do that. But we're going to do that today. We're going to walk where Jesus walked, and we're going to go through this passage together. I will tell you, Corey is just home. He sends his love. He's just a bit under the weather after a long trip, so he just thought it was best to play it safe and give it one more day of rest. So we encouraged him to do that. But he cannot wait to see all of you, and he's doing better. So we'll be praying for him. But I think we should just take a moment and pause and pray. I was thinking about Haley as you're going. Be praying for you. And that Haley is just one of many that are doing different things in their lives and having different experiences, and we cover each one of you in prayer. So why don't you pray with me? Lord, I am just so thankful for how good you are and how complete your goodness is in us and through us and in this world. Help our eyes to be open to your goodness today as we walk with you through your word. Lord, I pray that you be with individuals in our church family who are doing new things or experiencing difficulties or just are doing something or experiencing something that is out of the normal, and they just need a little bit extra of your presence in their lives today, that they will know that you are already there and that you care and you hear and you work for their good. Lord, help us to continue to be encouraged, to pray out loud for one another in person as much as we possibly can, and to build one another up, which is what we do as family. Lord, I thank you for this time, and just be with us as we walk in your word. In your name, amen. Now, Rochelle, she read a passage that I know is probably familiar to many of us, and it's a passage that really contains a very profound miracle. It's an exceptional, I mean, all miracles are exceptional, but it seems like it's like the uber miracle, right? And today, though, we're not going to spend a lot of time on the passage that Rochelle read, because one of the things that when we were in Israel that was said to us a lot is you have to zoom back. You need to look at, yes, the specific stories, but then you need to kind of step back. So even when the guide would take us to specific places, there were times where we would be in higher locations, and she would say, okay, now we're going to zoom back and look around. Where is everything in connection to one another? And I think that's what we have to do in the Word sometimes too. We look at individual stories when we study, and on a Sunday, sometimes we do that as well, but it's important to take a moment and step back and see the bigger picture. And so that's what we're going to do a little bit today. Because it's easy when we read, especially Mark, I mean, he goes story after story after story. I mean, it's boom, 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 right? He just moves quickly. And I feel like a lot of these stories, there's a theme of the disciples missing who Christ is over and over again. And it's easy when you read an individual story to go, what's wrong with them? How can they not see who he is? How are they not getting this when he keeps doing amazing, miraculous things? But I think that we're going to zoom out a little bit today and look at the disciples' experience, and that will help us to understand how easy it is to miss him. So leading up to Mark 6, Jesus had been traveling with his disciples, and they had witnessed a lot of teaching and miracles, because often when Jesus would do a miracle, he would also teach. So they would see it and they would hear it. And a lot of the things, many of the things that Jesus was saying, they were a familiar text. He was pulling up what they knew from the Old Testament. But now it was different because it was him saying it. It had a whole new meaning because he was fulfilling what they had known before. And this was something to wonder at. But it still would have been confusing and difficult for them to understand, even for the disciples to fully grasp. But as Christ's ministry continued, what happened in the beginning? His popularity grew. There were a massive amount of people that were following him from place to place. Everybody was talking about it. And all of these people would come, and they were just packing in to hear him. He was very popular. And that feels good, right? That feels good to be a part of something like that. And then we have in Mark 6, and Katie kind of alluded to this a little bit, that Jesus and his disciples, they go to his hometown, Nazareth. And Chrissy talked about this last week, that the reception was different. He has the same message, but now it's with people who have known him since he was a child, and their response is different. That in the story it says that when he shared the truth about who he was, the synagogue was filled with wrath, and they took him out to that cliff, and they were going to throw him off because they were so angry at him. But it wasn't his time yet. So think about all of that whole experience so far from the disciples' perspective. So they'd been called out. They had been taught, they had seen amazing things, and they had seen the crowds just love him and love them. And that felt really great. And then they go to a place, and Nazareth, that should have been familiar, should be like, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be my big homecoming, his big homecoming, and I'm a part of it. And instead, it's chaos and wrath. And you have to think, everybody knows those disciples are with Jesus. So when they're dragging him up to the cliff, they're there too. And they're experiencing this side of it. And in the beginning with the popularity, I imagine them saying, I get to be a part of this. And then later going, is this worth following him for? Because this is terrifying. They'd be confused. And then after the low of Christ's Nazareth reception, what does he do next in verse 7 of that chapter? He starts sending them out. So they have a high, all these highs, they have a major low, and then he gets with them all and says, okay, now you're going to go out. You've seen it. You've seen me do it. Now you're going to go do it in my name, on your own, 2 by 2. And he's going to send them out. And it's just one verse. When he says it, I'm going to send you out. And then he explains what he expects of them, and then it moves on. Well, that would be terrifying. Could you imagine that? Like you're following this guy, you've seen how good it can be, and you've seen how rough it can be. And then he says, now go do it on your own. I would have lots of questions. I would be looking at him going, okay, I need you to lay out what is the itinerary, who will I meet, who will host us, who will be in this place. When you say I can't bring anything, what does that actually mean? That would be a terrifying experience. And he was telling them to do it without him physically there, but in his name. But they do it, right? They go out and they obey. And I'm sure that without Christ physically there to provide for them, even though he told them to go out with nothing and be dependent on those around them, it would be very easy when it's just you and somebody else doing your mission trip for the Lord to get a little bit independent, to really kind of lean more on your own provisions. Okay, we have to make a plan for today. What's going to happen today? How are we going to figure out where we're going, where we're going to stay? And it's easy to kind of start to become the problem solver because you're out there with just one other person, and Christ is not physically with you. And I'm also sure that as they went through that time and they're following him and they're obeying him, that there was very mixed reception, just like there was with Christ. So they would share this message and they would do these healings just like Christ was doing, and they were doing it in his name, and they would be met with people who were confused and people who were joyful. They would be met with mass hysteria and belief and anger and physical threat, all of these things, every place they went. And when they are gone, they're all spread out. What brings them back together? Not a great reunion, but the death of John the Baptist. That was interesting to me. In Mark 29, it says, when his disciples, so they're all out in these different places, and when they heard that John the Baptist, who prepared the way for Christ, had been killed, it says in verse 29, when his disciples heard of it, they came and they took his body and they laid it in a tomb. So they've had highs, they've had lows, they've gone out on their own, and now they're all coming back together to bury a friend. This was not the reunion they would want. And I can only imagine them. They're wrapping John's body, preparing it for burial, thinking, who's next? Will this be my Lord next? Will this be me next? Who's next? Who's going to die for this cause next? Where was John's miracle? If Christ can do all these things, why didn't he save John? I mean, these are things that I would be thinking. And if the disciples are just normal people, they are common thoughts because it's a common experience. And then we come to the passage that Rochelle read. In verse 30 of chapter 6, it says, the apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, come away by yourselves to a desolate, isolated place and rest for a while. So now John the Baptist has died, they've buried him, and he's saying, now we're going to get together, we're going to go off on our own, and we're going to rest with one another. For many were coming and going, but they had had no leisure even to eat. And verse 32 says, and they went away in the boat to a desolate, isolated place by themselves. These guys were exhausted. They were done, spent. They were spent physically, because you think they'd walked countless miles from place to place, and the physical toll of caring for people, healing people, comforting people, always just being there for people is physically exhausting. Even more so, they were spent emotionally, because they've been on this spiritual roller coaster of highs and lows on Christ's mission. And the emotional toll that was added was then the burial of John the Baptist. So they're all over the place. They're done. And in this moment, after all that the disciples had experienced with Christ and then without Christ, it makes perfect sense that they would need time away together. I will tell you that I loved our trip to Israel, but on the drive, Corey said we drove home, but we didn't. We flew home the 12 hours to Chicago, and then we were driving from Chicago back to Royal Oak, and we're exhausted. I didn't sleep at all on the flight home. I just couldn't. And then we're driving home, and Corey wakes me up in the car and goes, I think we're in trouble because we have a flat tire. So we pull over, and we get the spare on, and then spent 3 hours in Kalamazoo. It was great. I love Kalamazoo because it saved my tire, right? But then we had to drive 2.5 more hours home, and we were supposed to be home long before that. And I'm driving the last little bit, and I'm telling you that last half an hour where I just want to be with my family, I miss them desperately, and I'm absolutely exhausted. Those minutes were crawling by because I was so desperate to be with my family. And I kept thinking about the disciples and how exhausted. They've done this amazing journey, but they are exhausted. And all they want to do is just be with each other and rest. That's the point that they are at. And I imagine, after all they had experienced, that at that point of being completely spent, when they try to go to this desolate place and they see the crowds of people already there waiting for them, they're mad. They're frustrated. This is ridiculous. They're frustrated with the people. Can't you all just wait a few minutes and give us a bit of rest? Can't you just wait to get your piece of him? They had seen so many people get their miracles and then just go without truly committing to Christ's message. It would make sense for the disciples to feel somewhat jaded by the intentions of the crowd. Can you just back off? Christ had already spoken about some of the cities where many of his miracles had been done. In Matthew 11, it says, then he began to denounce the people in the cities in which most of his miracles were done because they did not repent and change their hearts and lives. And he actually starts naming off some of those cities. And he says, woe to you, Chorazin, and woe to you, Bethsaida, and woe to you, Capernaum. And these are places where he'd done lots of miracles and no spiritual change had happened. And he's saying, that is so sad. I'm grieving over what will come of you, because what comes from that is destruction. Don't just come for the quick miracle and not be changed. Christ is saying, I am more than a miracle. Jim, if you want to put that first slide up there, Chorazin was a city that's listed in that passage, and what's left? No stories of faith, no growth of believers, just rocks. Just rocks. Remnants, and the synagogue, what's interesting, there's a synagogue, it was a synagogue, and it also had Greek gods, Roman gods, in the synagogue. And so they were melding pagan and Hebrew together and just being a compromised faith. And the fruit of their disbelief was compromise, and we know the outcome of compromise is destruction, and he's saying, woe to you. The disciples would have heard him saying all of that before this moment on the hill, and so they're saying, these people are just going to come and get their miracle and walk away too. What's the point? Knowing all this, it makes sense for the disciples to have a lower tolerance for the crowd, and to say at the end of the day, just send them home. Can't you give us some space to breathe? Do you have to be so needy? We have nothing else for you. And I'm also sure they were a bit frustrated with Christ. Because what does he do, right? We know that Christ looks on the crowd with exhausted, because he's tired too. He's human. He's tired too. And he looks at them with compassion and exhausted eyes. And that compassion was for the hurting, the grieving, the uncertain, the vulnerable people, and it was also for the hurting, grieving, uncertain, and vulnerable and exhausted disciples. He's looking at them both. It doesn't shorten his care for them, but he's also caring for others. And so what does he do in that passage? He multiplies the bread and the fish to feed the people and also to show the disciples just another part of who he is. And it would have been wonderful in that moment if the disciples were at the mature point that even if they're exhausted, they had said to them, when Christ commanded them to feed the people, had said, well, we've seen everything that you can do, and we know this is going to be good. What do you want us to do? What are you going to do here? Because this is going to be good, and we just want to be a part of it. So what do you need us to do, Lord, to help feed all these people? That would have been a very mature response. We would like that to be our response too, right? Every time. I know you are Christ. I know who you are. I know what you can do. I know that you will take care of this big issue, this great concern of mine, because you've never let me down before. What do you want me to do? I can't wait to watch it. But so often we don't get to that point as our natural start, especially when we are exhausted and frustrated. More often than not, when we are tired and spent and we've built up habits of being less dependent on Christ's resources, we start with frustration. Can we just send them away? It can't be done. We don't have enough. But Christ responds to their stubborn frustration with grace. Let me teach you for a while, because that's what he's doing. He's teaching them. And at the end of the day, their lesson ends with full baskets of leftover food. And while this moment was incredible and this miracle was amazing, this didn't take away everything the disciples had experienced prior to it. It's not like that miracle happened and they forgot everything they were feeling, from the highs and the lows and being sent out and the grieving. All of those crazy things they were feeling, those don't just go away because he did a miracle. They're still experiencing all of it. They were still in that place, and they were still probably frustrated, because what did they want to do? They just wanted to be with him, away and rest. And they missed the bigger picture of who Christ is again. And that leads us to Mark 6:45, if you want to go there. It says in verse 45, immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had taken leave of them, he went up to the mountain to pray. Now, it seems strange. Mark likes the word immediately. He uses it a lot. But it seems strange that the crowd is kind of going, and Jesus is like, get in the boat, get in the boat, get in the boat, right? Get off, go, go, go. And he's saying, I'll see you in a bit. I'm going to the mountain. I mean, it just seems kind of abrupt, doesn't it? That's how it ends, that story going into this one. But what the other Gospels share about this moment is the crowd is so amazed by the miracle. They're trying to make Christ their earthly king right then. They want to make him king. And he's saying, this is not my time yet. So I need to cut this off quick before things get worse. That is not my Father's plan. But he also knew that if the disciples heard that rumbling, that their teacher could be king, that sounds pretty great. And that might be so enticing to them, they would have a hard time letting that go. So he's trying to push them off so that they don't get distracted, and he's going to try and talk to his Father so that he has just some time away as well. So he sends them back out on the boat, and he goes up the mountain off the coast of the Sea of Galilee to pray. In verse 47, and when evening came, the boat was out on the sea, and he was alone on the land. And he saw that they were making headway painfully. They were straining at the oars, for the wind was against them. Now, I had always imagined this story as being out in a great storm. I mean, when you see it in movies or in depictions, it's like a huge, it looks like the ocean, right? It looks like you'd be out on the ocean like the Titanic in a storm, right? And you can't see anything. But it was interesting when we went on the Sea of Galilee, and I have another picture. It's helpful to see actually where things are. It is not a big body of water. That is the whole Sea of Galilee. And they didn't have to go far in the boat. So if you look at this, and I know this is kind of like a little bit of a teaching lesson, but all they were going, do you see that red line? That's the whole journey. That's it. They were going from Tabgha to Bethsaida. It's this little tiny bit. And a full way across Galilee, and the widest part was 7 miles. So this is not far. If you want to go to the next slide. I think there's one more. Yeah. So you can see there the mountains. Like, you would be able to see your point of destination right in front of you. Okay, that's where they're going to. They didn't have far to go off in the boat. But the wind blowing made their destination absolutely impossible. So they're rowing and rowing and rowing, and they can see Bethsaida, and they are not getting anywhere for hours through the night. And this storm is different than the other storm story in Mark. In the other story in Mark, when they're also on the Sea of Galilee, a big storm came up, and they are terrified they are going to die. This is not the tone of this story. They are absolutely exhausted. That is the issue in this. I just want to get to land, and I have to keep rowing, and I'm absolutely exhausted. They aren't afraid, but they have literally spent everything they have, and yet they keep going. They keep rowing. They keep refusing to yield their own dwindling strength and stamina. They keep refusing to think, maybe Christ can do something about this. In their mind, they're going, well, he's up on the mountain. He's not with us. We're alone, on our own, again. They're refusing to call out to the only one who gives them rest, and so they just row and row and row all night long. They see their destination in sight, and they keep going. If I just do it a little bit more, maybe I'll get there. If I just keep pushing, if we just all keep doing this, we will eventually get there. And they get nowhere. They stay in one spot. Well, what does Christ do in this moment? He stays true to who he is. He's not a miracle man. He is not an idol of fleeting popularity. He's not just their teacher or a great speaker or a prophet, because he's not limited to any one thing. He is God. And he is going to show them in a very powerful way that he is God. And so first, as God, it says in the scripture that he sees them from the mountain. He sees them from on high. They were never out of his sight. He sees them struggle, and I think part of his teaching was to allow them to sit in that struggle for a little while. And it's not because he's unfeeling or cold, but I think they needed to experience the struggle. Them laboring for hours isn't due to a lack of Christ's care, but perhaps they labored for that time because Christ looked on them with compassionate eyes and said, I need to be able to teach them in a way that will help them to know me better. But when his timing was right, because he was God, what does he do? He sees them and he gets to them quickly. He reaches them right when he wants to reach them, and then he teaches them there. So if you pick up where we left off in verse 48, and at about the fourth watch of the night, so that's about the time that I would wake up every night in Israel, especially the night that I got a phone call at 4 a.m. from Thank You Royal Oak School District to let me know that there was a snow day. We were so thankful for that information. So they're rowing crazy all night long, and he sees them. He comes there, and about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. He meant to pass them by, but when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost, and they cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But sometimes you look at it and go, like, what? They thought he was a ghost. But you have to also think about the point of physical, mental, emotional exhaustion that they are at. They are not thinking in any way that something like that could be possible. And so the only rational thought in that moment at their point of exhaustion is, he's a ghost. But immediately he spoke to them and said, take heart. It is I. Do not be afraid. This was a teaching moment. I imagine Christ walking to them on the water and saying, are you done yet? Right? Are you done? When we are going through situations and seasons that are exhausting, we, just like the disciples, we tend to focus on the work and the energy that we can contribute to the situation. If I just keep rowing, if I just keep doing and pushing. And all we experience is frustration that we can't reach our destination. It's right there in front of us, and we just can't get there. We can't get ourselves there, but someone can. We become blind to the fact that Jesus has been watching over us and is just waiting for the perfect moment to show us even more of his loving presence. And I imagine that Christ, he looks at us and our panicked, frantic rowing, and he looks at us with compassionate eyes, and he reaches out his hand with love and says, "Are you done yet? Are you at a point where you can need me now?" And yet he does so much more than that. In verse 48, if you go back to that, it says that as Christ walked by them, he meant to pass them by, or pass by them. Now that sounds kind of cold, right? He's like, "I'm just going to pass by you." But passing by has a very big Old Testament meaning. In Exodus 33, Moses has a conversation with God, and it's after the people have really messed up. And God is going to punish them, and they have created the idol, and they're worshiping that. And Moses is so mad at the people. He's so frustrated with the people. And he's at a point where he's exhausted. And he's saying to the Lord, he's having this conversation with them, trying to plead for these people that he's mad at himself. He's got all these mixed emotions. And he says to God, "Please, show me your glory. Show me your ways, because I want to know you more so I can understand and tackle this." And God responds in Exodus 33:19. This is what he says to him. "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you my name, the Lord. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy." But he said, "You cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." And the Lord said, "Behold, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock, and while my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, for my face shall not be seen." Moses, he's writing in a way to show God's presence in a concept that people could understand. So he's using human terms like front, back, face, which isn't really completely accurate. But what he's really meaning here is that when he asks to know God's glory better, God revealed his presence in a way that was sufficient, but that would not cause Moses harm because of the magnitude of God's glory. So I'm going to show you who I am so you can know me, but I'm going to show it to you in a way that you won't be destroyed by my glory. Moses knew the great I am in a way that strengthened him, but did not destroy him. That is what passing by means. And so when Jesus meant to pass by the disciples, what he's doing there is intending to reveal himself as more than just a miracle man, more than their friend or their teacher or the head of their family. What he's saying is, I am God in the flesh. He's saying, I am the great I am. I will make you aware that I am is here. My power, my nearness, my presence are all here for you, and they're here right now. What did God say to Moses when he passed by him? When that moment happened and God passed by and protected him and showed Moses his glory so he could know him better, this is what it says. And I just changed the terms a little bit so that way it's as if God is saying it. I am God. I am merciful and gracious. I abound in steadfast love and faithfulness. I will keep my steadfast love with you for generations, and I will forgive your sins. But for a time, your generational sin will not be cleared. It will be experienced for generations. Now, he says that, and it's not being cruel in this moment, but Christ hadn't come to die for them yet. So there would still be sacrifices that had to be made. He had not come to be the one true sacrifice yet, so that was still part of it. But in this moment, with the disciples, Jesus walks to them, and he passes them by to show his glory to them. But he doesn't just show his back, he shows his face. And that's the difference, because now we can see him. What does Jesus say to his exhausted, stubborn, terrified disciples who are spent on ministry as he passes them by? He says, take heart. Be joyful in the fact that your courage doesn't come from you. It comes from me and what I can do in you. And courage is my gift to you. I know that you are tired. I know, I saw it. I experience it. I'm tired too. I know you are confused. I know you are grieving. I know you are fretting about what is to come for me and for you. So right now, stop rowing and rest in my strength and be hopeful that I can bring you to your destination. You're not going to have all the answers right now, so stop trying to, because I am is here. The God you have worshiped for generations is standing before you, and nothing is going to keep me from you. What is a more fitting footing for your Creator than the waves of the sea? My goodness. If he can part the sea, he can walk on it, right? Don't be surprised by this. You know my voice. You've heard my name. You know who I am. I am. I am mercy, I am grace. My love for you is firm as my foot on this water. Forgive your sins, I will, and I will completely clear them from your name. It will be different. Ooh, it's like the voice of God, right? Always something exciting, right? It will be different now because I am here. I am the one true lamb. I am the one sacrifice. So just trust me and stop rowing and rest that I will get you there. Don't be afraid. You know me. You already know me. Now know me better, because there's more of me to even experience. And we see this beautiful, clear, smooth water, and this is what we experienced. And as he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased, and they were utterly astounded, completely overwhelmed. And then verse 52 says, so they were astounded as he got in, and things completely calmed down. And it says, for they did not understand about the loaves, the previous miracle, and how it revealed that power of Jesus as the great I am, because their hearts were hardened. That's a word we've heard before too, right? Right? We hear that in Exodus, right? We hear about Pharaoh's heart is hardened. We hear about the Pharisees, their hearts hardened. Later on, we're going to hear about Judas, and his heart is hardened. But what's the difference here? Really, the experience of having a hardened heart is no different for anyone. The greatest difference is that a heart doesn't have to stay hard. It shows that the greatness of Christ's miraculous work is that I am. Even the hardest heart isn't without hope. So even in this moment, even though they're still not getting it, even though they're exhausted, even though they're still just refusing to see who he truly is, they aren't without hope to know him. In Christ, there is hope that the hearts of his followers will soften, they will break open, and be completely transformed. It's just going to take time. Here, the disciples still had small faith. In fact, Matthew's telling the story says that Jesus says to them, oh, you of little faith. And he's saying it as a term of endearment. Oh, you of little faith. Why do you keep doubting me? When our faith is small, our hearts grow hard to Christ. We stop trying to know him better. We stop expecting him to be the great I am. He is passing us by, and it doesn't mean he's passing us by to leave us. He's showing us who he is, but when we let our exhaustion diminish our faith, which hardens our heart, we stop looking for him. Because once we start using our own resources and get tired doing that, what do? We just keep rowing. And yet, even in that place, we are not without hope. If the praise band wants to come up. He watches over us. He watches over us. How beautiful is that? He reaches out to us, and he puts us in the best position to experience his glory. But what that means is that sometimes we might find ourselves in situations where we have to spend down all of our resources and not get anywhere. Have you ever been in a time where you feel like I'm doing everything I possibly can to fix this, and I'm not getting anywhere? I think that sometimes Christ lets us sit in that for a while. I do. I think that sometimes we have to get to the point where we have nothing left so that we can finally understand how helpless we are and that we need him so desperately. I really do think that sometimes that's why we don't get to the other side of the river or the lake. We don't get there because we're just sitting there rowing and rowing and rowing and rowing, and he's just waiting for us to be done so that he can take over, so that he can step in the boat. Those rowboat seasons have a purpose. They prepare us to see him pass by, to see his glory. We don't have to be so consumed with rowing that we forget to look for him. Where do the disciples end up once Christ steps into the boat? And this is interesting. So Tabitha was here, Bethsaida was here, and they were supposed to go from here to here. But they end up, once he gets in the boat, they end up in Gennesaret, which is right here. They didn't even have to get on the boat in the first place. But he put them there because they had to learn a lesson. His plan wasn't for them to end up in Bethsaida. It was going to be in Gennesaret. But they had to experience this so that they could trust him more. They needed to be able to, once they later saw him die on the cross and be resurrected, they needed to be able to pull these things up in their mind and go, now this makes sense. I understand now why I had to go through this experience. Well, guys, we have the whole picture, right? We know the whole story. And so we can look at our lives now and say, I know why this makes sense. I may not know it while I'm in the middle, but perhaps I need to stop rowing and ask to see his glory. He is God. He is the great I am. And perhaps I need to stop rowing in whatever experience I'm in, stop using my resources and using my strength and just being frustrated because I'm not getting where I need to get, and instead say, Lord, show me your glory because I need to know you better. I need to know that you see me and you haven't forgotten me. I need to know that you reach out to me and you will not abandon me. I need to know that you have never stopped loving me. So Lord, I'm going to put the oars down and ask to see your glory. Sometimes we have to spend a whole night rowing to get us to a place where we can see how fruitless rowing really is. Only then can we stop and rest in his provision, his power, and know him as the great I am. I am God, and when I hold you up, you will not sink. So trust me. So we're going to sing a song. It's another new one. We're trying to introduce a few new ones, and it's just called Miracles. And there's going to be a phrase that's going to be said a whole bunch of times. I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe in you. And I think it's purposeful that it's so repetitive, because sometimes I think that we need to have that mental memory of that phrase. Because when we're doing this, right, and we're trying to get there, and we're trying to get there, and we're trying to get there, it's hard to do all of this and say, I believe in you, I believe in you, I believe in you, right? We have to be in a place where we just stop and say, I believe in you. I believe in you. I'm scared, but I believe in you. I'm hurting, I'm grieving, I believe in you. I've experienced highs and I've experienced lows, and it's kind of confusing. I believe in you because you're the God of miracles, and you can do so much more than I ever could. Show me your glory. So today I would just ask you to consider the things that you are trying to row to, the situations that are open-ended at this point for you, for your loved ones, for your life, for your future. And where do you find yourself? Are you somewhere in the middle of the water? Have you not even gotten in the boat yet? Are you rowing, or are you sitting there just going, I'm not really getting anywhere and it's frustrating, but I'm just going to take a pause and say, Lord, show me your glory. What if we did that just like Moses? Show me who you are so that I can know you better, because I guarantee you every time he's going to answer your call. And so what I really would like you to focus on today is just that phrase, Lord, show me your glory in what I'm experiencing right now. I believe in you. And as we sing this, I would encourage you to take time and pray that. Show me your glory so I can know you better. And you might want to come and do it here. The altar is a beautiful place to come pray, because for me, I always think it's a signal to say, I want someone to pray with me. And if someone comes, I expect someone to come pray with them, right? That I want to experience community prayer. I believe in you. Show me your glory. Maybe you need to do that at your seat. Maybe you need to grab a friend next to you, but don't leave this place and keep rowing, because you're not going to get anywhere on your own. And if you've never experienced that relief the first time of the Lord saving you, of putting your faith and trust in him for the first time, this is the perfect place to say, Lord, I want to stop spinning my wheels because it's not filling me up. It's not getting anywhere. I believe in you. Show me your glory. Take time to pray over what you are rowing to and ask him to show who he is, the great I am.